Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is AJ Kuftik, and I'm Principal Technologist with Expedient. I'm really happy you've all joined us today. Today, we've got a really great interview between Doug Theis, our Director of Market Strategy, and Matt Etchison, who's CIO and Senior Vice President with Ivy Tech Community College. Just a quick housekeeping note. If you have any questions, please enter them into the Q&A panel down below here. That makes sure that we keep track of all your questions and make sure that they get answered. And if you ask a question, you're entered to win a prize. That prize this week is a Bose SoundLink. So please give a big warm welcome to Doug and Matt. Doug, take it away.
Thanks, Matt. Let's dive in. How's the higher education business?
It's good. It's a challenging year. I don't have to tell anyone that, as we're all living it, but it's good and it's getting better. We have some challenging times. That we just had over 7,500 new students apply to Ivy Tech for our taking Hoosiers to the next level initiative, which is something we did with the state of Indiana and the governor. So basically, obviously a lot of folks have been displaced with the economy, with everything that's going on with COVID. So this allows you to come into Ivy Tech, into the community college here in the state of Indiana, get a short-term credential between now and the spring, and graduate and have a new skill. So all completely paid for by the state. And we got flooded with applications. So that was good. So second 8 weeks of fall and into spring, and then you'll be on to graduate with a new skill. So that's been going great. So that's an exciting initiative for us that we just kicked off.
Are you in the same boat as other higher education organizations? I mean, they're in the news every day right now. What's the same? What's different?
Yeah, so a little bit of yes and no there. I mean, we don't have residential campuses. We don't have like big athletic programs. So normally that would be the envy of many community colleges, but not now. That's actually a blessing for us not to have the campuses, the dormitories, the fraternities, the sororities. We don't have all that. So we don't have the possibility for outbreaks and that sort of density and problems. So that's been a blessing for us. So we have 18 major campuses, additional 22 sites, so 40 locations across the state of Indiana. But we're all facing the same sort of challenges of being face to face, which we have about 20% of our classes are face to face. So you think about a community college in those sort of trades and skills like automotive and welding, health sciences. Those are really really difficult to teach online and virtually. And so we do have those face to face. So we're making sure we're following all the state's protocols, for social distancing and sort of sterile environments and doing all that sort of thing, following it all properly. But so we have the same sort of challenges as the residential campus in that regard. But again, we don't have the dormitory, so it's making it a little bit easier for us.
Interesting. Tell us a little bit about your IT infrastructure.
Yeah, so pretty much a hybrid environment, like many organizations, right? We're doing our part in the cloud, certainly doing our part on-prem. So we have a fair amount of legacy systems that we're working through to migrate to the cloud. So like anyone, going through see what needs to be moved and what doesn't. We have a very large software as a service presence with Salesforce Service now, so that's certainly in the cloud. Great partnership with Expedient, as part of our disaster recovery solution from our on-prem data center. So that's been great. So we're truly valuing that partnership and what we've been able to do there, and then move quickly with that partnership as well. So hats off to Expedient and everything they've done for us in that regard. We're a very large Microsoft Azure customer, and we have some AWS presence. But for example, we have 1.3 million AD objects, right? So we're a massive Microsoft customer in that regard, and the ability to sync that and make those moves is a pretty big process, certainly. But again, software as a service for things that we're really kind of growing aggressively, but then certainly having that sort of hybrid infrastructure we have now.
So you mentioned two pretty sizable software as a service applications. Digital transformation, I mean, it sounds like that's part of it. How's your transformation unfolding?
Yeah, that's been going great. I think it's one of those things, especially in higher ed. I think there's this notion that no one wants to touch that, like being innovative, being disruptive is a bad thing. But I've really found that, truly the business, all of our stakeholders, certainly the IT team, that people love innovation. They love to do exciting and challenging things. So we just kicked off, last month, mid-September rather, the largest Salesforce rollout in higher ed in the country. That was massive. So we've accomplished that. We're actually going live with ServiceNow on the ITSM and knowledge management platform in December. So we're crushing it with innovation. It's been a very busy year, and then we had a pandemic on top of that, right? So you look at all the things that we've been able to accomplish. Last year we went big with mobile. We did from signed contract to go live with a mobile app in 4 months, fastest out of 200 universities. And then we actually won the most innovative campus app of 2019 in the process. So we actually broke the top 100 in the Apple App Store in downloads out of 2.2 million apps. It's pretty impressive. So 30,000 downloads the first week for a college, for a community college, for an app is pretty unheard of. So doing some great things. Digital transformation is exciting. It's got people kind of really just jazzed and pumped about what we're doing, and we're seeing the return to all our stakeholders too. The students see it, right? Even with the mobile app, we had student government and students design that based on their needs. It wasn't what I wanted or what faculty wanted. It's like, we're building an app for the students. Let's let them decide. So there's a lot of exciting happening. On top of that, we migrated our data warehouse from Redshift to Snowflake. That was a massive endeavor as well. So, but we've done really good about lining these things up, making the moves and migrations quarterly where the timing's right. So obviously, nothing stopped during a pandemic. I think the problem with a lot of organizations is they let things stop, and you have to keep innovating. You have to keep moving forward. I think we've done that, and we've done really good about having a team that times these things very well. And so, yeah, you can get oversubscribed and people can, not get the sleep they need. So you have to be really careful of that, cognizant of those sort of things. But we've been really good about just making sure that, we're projecting out our roadmap. We know what's coming. We know what we have to do and when we have to do it. So it's been great in that regard.
A lot of your digital transformation efforts have been a result of the fact that Ivy Tech is serving the state differently than it served the state 20 years ago. Can you talk a little bit about that?
If you look at the state's economy over the next 10 years, half of the 1 million jobs being created will be in the sub-baccalaureate space, right? So 500,000 jobs, that's 50,000 jobs a year that require less than a bachelor's degree. That all falls on Ivy Tech's shoulders. So if we don't meet that credential goal of 50,000 a year, then the state's economy fails, and it fails all of us, in our communities. So we take that very seriously. We're really focused. We're not quite to 50,000 yet. We're well on our way. We've made some huge strides the last 2 or 3 years, and we're getting there. But again, these are our communities. It's where it's where all of us live, and it's vital to our economy to have those sort of high wage, high demand, skilled jobs. Think about manufacturing, IT, healthcare, supply chain logistics, ag, construction. It's 80% of the Hoosier economy. So we have to skill up our folks and our fellow neighbors and friends to get them to drive the economy forward.
I hear a lot about people who are college bound using Ivy Tech for their first or second year to manage costs and to take a little more practical approach to higher ed. Is that happening?
Yeah, it's happening in huge numbers. So we have 160,000 students roughly at Ivy Tech, right? But a large portion of those are dual credit and dual enrolled students in high school. So you can get 30 to 60 college credits in high school at basically no cost that you could transfer in, legislatively mandated, by the way, to transfer into a public 4-year. So when I talk to parents all the time, they're just shocked that they can get a year or two of college paid for and transfer that into a public 4-year. So we literally have students. We just had students at South Bend. We did the virtual commencement. I think we had 11 students that graduated from high school with an associate's degree transfer into a public 4-year. It's unbelievable. And the cost savings. I mean, who doesn't want to have, as a parent, I'm a parent myself. My son actually is getting ready to graduate from Ivy Tech. We have, to literally have your first year or two of college paid for. It's huge. It's a huge financial windfall, and it's huge for parents and students. And it's also a good primer for the sort of, aggressive rigor of a 4-year, right? So it's that nice bridge between K through 12 and a 4-year institution, a 4-year university. So it's been wildly successful, and parents love it. And again, we're doing this throughout the state.
Can you talk a little bit about your IT team?
Yeah, amazing team, 195 plus people, just absolutely crushing it. They keep me in all every day. And they brought in a really great energy to what we're doing. And I think too, if there's one takeaway for the folks on the webinar, and thanks for everyone for taking time out of your day to join Doug and I, but if there's one takeaway, it's the IT in any organization, in any industry, any sector has to get out of the business of being a utility like water and electricity. We're not Wi-Fi and laptops. We're so much more than that. IT is a strategic partner to the business at all times, and anything strategically your organization is going to do, it's going to have to do with information technology. There's no other way, right? And I think us being able, as an IT team, to be able to bring ideas, bring technologies, tools, platforms to the business to say, hey, have you seen this? 99% of the time, they probably haven't seen it, regardless of your sector. And they're like, wow, we didn't know we can do things. An example of that is just Agile. So when I became CIO, having done Agile prior in my prior life, I brought that into the college, brought it into IT first. IT loved it. It gave us the ability to be nimble and move quickly. We brought that to the business. There was certainly some skeptics, but the people who got on board were like, okay, we'll try this. They were like, I can't believe how fast my stuff gets done. And so that sort of momentum just carries on, and they absolutely loved it. So now as much more of an agile organization. We're not 100% agile as an organization yet, but we're getting there aggressively, and things are getting done in record time. Further example of that, 2 years ago when I became CIO, I had a consulting firm come in because I kept hearing that IT was kind of a black hole where projects come to die. And obviously it's not what you want to start off as. So I had a consulting firm come in and and kind of assess the business and talk to the business and talk about the average age of an IT project. So in my head, I thought it would be like 6 to 8 months. It was actually 411 days, right? So 18 months later, after becoming agile, that 411 days is now less than 150 days per project. And every month it gets lower and lower. So the business has went from over a year to just a matter of months to getting things done. So they love it. It enables them as stakeholders. They're excited about IT again, and they see how fast we can deliver, and it helps them do their job that much quicker.
Can you talk about the breakdown of the 195 people on infrastructure and app dev and others?
Sure. So we obviously have data analytics, data engineering is a fairly big group for us. Things we're doing with Tableau and Salesforce certainly, and then we've got probably 25-ish people, 30 people on the infrastructure side. So when I say infrastructure, that's obviously cloud and on-prem both. We do have a very large ERP implementation with Illusion that is on-prem in our data center. So that takes a lot of care and feeding. That's Oracle backend. So a lot of work on that side. Certainly managing the partnership with Expedient and the disaster recovery piece of that as well. Again, we have 18 major campuses. So there's IT directors with usually 3 to 5 employees per campus. So that's a fairly large group there statewide to manage all the day-to-day IT for the campuses. And then, going a step further, we do a lot of app support. We have over 1,000 applications we support at the college, certainly trying to consolidate those down to a much smaller number, but a very large app support group that manages all those applications, everything from printing to payroll to you name it, that group manages all those.
How are you solving the talent problem within your team?
Yeah, that's always one I talk to a lot of CIOs about, and we're very fortunate because we actually have IT programs at Ivy Tech. So I like to think I get first pick of that talent. So if we've got some rock star students, I always have the deans and faculty send them my way, have that conversation. But something I do too that not everyone does. I've heard mixed results about this from some people, but if someone wants to learn a skill, whether it be MuleSoft or Salesforce or Tableau or whatever it is, I want them to learn that skill, and I'm going to make sure that I support that, I fund that, allow them to skill up, because that pays dividends going forward. That person, they want to get out of bed in the morning, be challenged. They want to learn new things. So I want them to learn what they want to learn. And certainly, I could say, hey, have you considered this? Have you considered that? But I think by empowering the team of 195 people to say, you know what, I'm going to fund training, I'm going to fund your certifications, I'm going to help you grow. It pays huge dividends. And I think we are at in the 10 months of 2020, we've had 1 resignation out of 195 people. First had another better opportunity. So I think that's I'm happy with that numbers. And my team is just phenomenal. And my goal as a leader is to keep people happy, keep people growing, keep people challenged. And the team's been incredible.
Have you been work from home from the IT group? Is it split? How's that playing out?
Yeah, I think Doug, you and I joked back in March or April that when the grocery stores emptied out and the world was collapsing, our team just connected to VPN, went to work as usual, like nothing really changed. But so we're all almost 100% virtual. I occasionally float into the office as do a few members of my team, but again, IT's been virtual for a few decades now, so it's the remote work for us is nothing. And we had an incredible pivot. I didn't have a crystal ball, but back in January to March 2019, we went aggressively as an enterprise on Zoom and Microsoft Teams. And so that one paid some serious dividends a year later, right? So when we had to pivot to go completely virtual as a college, everyone was already skilled up on Teams and Zoom. So there was no training, there was nothing, there was no scurrying by IT to turn on the lights. I mean, it was ready to go. So that really helped for us as far as making that pivot.
Do you divide out your work? Do you have separate use cases for Zoom and Teams?
It's interesting. The one funny story on that is when we started the fall semester, the very first day, the first morning, Zoom had a major global outage. The joke is when you're the top trending thing on Twitter, that's probably not a good thing, right? So we had that, but it really didn't affect us too much. I think it was more maybe on the billing side. It affected some folks, but so we had a little bit of trouble there, but we were able to pivot with Teams. So people literally just switched over to Teams and went remote that way. And that was like for that hour or whatever. But Otherwise, we have a mix of both that people use what they're comfortable with, and that's the great thing. And certainly teams have some collaborative benefits that we use internally. But again, it's just giving people options and enabling to use the tools.
Anything to say to students who are considering 4-year degrees or something different? I mean, it's hard for a 18-year-old to figure out what he wants to do with the rest of his life or what she wants to do with the rest of her life.
Yeah, I talk to students a lot and talk to young people a lot, and I say, Ivy Tech is a great place. Community colleges across the country, a great place to get sort of your general ed classes. You can explore without taking on a ton of debt at all. It's very affordable. Most states there's transfer. Certainly in Indiana, there's major transfer agreements where those classes transfer on. And if you come to community college and you try something, you don't like it, well, you're not in a ton of debt. If you go to a 4-year university, get a degree in whatever it is, and you want to change, first of all, that's a huge forklift. That's a huge amount of time. It's a huge amount of debt sometimes to do that. So community college is a great place to explore. Also, too, there are a lot of high wage, high demand jobs coming out of community college. Certainly, if you look at all the skilled trades that we have with apprenticeships and things like that. I mean, certainly like electricians and plumbers. I mean, again, automotive, health sciences. We have registered nursing programs and respiratory therapy. There's a lot of great programs. 73 different degree programs at Ivy Tech statewide. And so to be able to come in, transfer credits in from high school, have little to no debt, and get a high wage, high demand job in a matter of years. I mean, we did the Salesforce Pathfinder program. We were teaching Salesforce admin and developer, and we're the only school in the country teaching that. It was unreal. And so we had people literally leaving 4 years, coming to Ivy Tech to take IT classes and get a degree in IT focus on Salesforce. So again, just being able to be, agile and nimble. And not everyone under 18 knows what they want to do the rest of their life. So community college is a great place to get a skill. You'll always have that skill. I have a son who's graduated from the automotive program, considering going to a 4-year, but he'll always have an automotive skill that is very marketable and got a job immediately after graduating this fall. So tons of options there at community college for sure.
How is the transition from private sector to public sector? I mean, this is relatively new to you, right? The public thing?
Yeah, it's like going from Earth to the moon. Right? So it was quite an adventure. So I spent 9 years at Interactive Intelligence, which was a huge software company headquartered here in Indiana. We were innovative 24/7, and our speed of delivery was off the charts. Come to higher ed, it's different. I mean, higher ed, a lot of higher ed, certainly not Ivy Tech, a lot of higher ed's kind of living in the 19th century, right? But COVID disrupted that. COVID made us realize that, the world has to go virtual. You have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to move quickly. And so it's been an adjustment, but I think people are eager and hungry to be innovative, to be challenged, to make progress, and do some great, amazing things. And I think we're doing that as a college. We certainly have a long way to go, but we're getting there. And we're returning the value to our fellow, taxpayers like myself and you, Doug, and fellow stakeholders. Skilling up people with little debt, getting in and out of college quickly, getting onto the gateway to the middle class that we are as a college, and it's exciting. So I love the innovation. We're kind of leading the pack in this in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you're breaking the mold. It sounds like it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Great conversation, Matt. AJ, how's our question list looking?
Question list is looking great over here. Matt, you got a lot of people asking a lot of questions here around kind of how COVID impacted both your technology roadmap, but also your curriculum. Has that made any sort of changes? Have you seen like an increase in certain programs, or how you deliver the education back to the students?
Yeah, that's a big challenge for us in the sense that, again, talking about those sort of tactile learning, hands-on learning programs. I mean, really hard to learn welding virtually, right? And things like that, very, very challenging. So it's us having to make adjustments. And we did a great job as a college of as soon as it was safe and we could make it work, getting students back into labs, socially distanced, spread way out to be able to do that sort of thing. Faculty members scheduling time to meet with students individually to do that sort of training, hands-on work that you'd have in automotive or health science or welding or any of the skilled trades. So we did a good job of kind of making that pivot and adjustment. Again, full transparency, that first week, it was like, okay, what are we going to do, right? We took a week as a kind of hit the pause button in March for a week and said, okay, let's regroup, let's figure this out and let's move forward. And then when we couldn't get into the campuses in spring, we made sure we made adjustments in the summer where students could get in and finish their degree so they could graduate. So super important to us as a college. So made those kind of adjustments. Faculty are doing a phenomenal job of always trying to adjust and meet needs of students where they're at. We don't know how long the pandemic is going to be. Certainly some numbers nationwide are kind of ramping up, which is concerning. So, we're playing the long game, but also, just making sure we adjust accordingly. And technology roadmap hasn't changed much. I mean, we're going through with our vision. 2 years ago, we outlined, a mobile business intelligence, CRM strategy, and certainly ITSM with ServiceNow. We've stuck to that strategy to the letter. It's not deviated whatsoever. I didn't even mention that we did one of the largest, Tableau migrations and data warehouse migrations in this year as well, and that's been incredible. We went from pulling reports on spreadsheets to doing, data visualization where you could deep dive in enrollment, retention, completion numbers. Unheard of. We had a local partner with OneBridge, did a phenomenal job helping us with that. So we literally moved 2,000 reports that were scheduled for 2 years into 6 months. Had to get it done during COVID, and we knocked it out.
So in that same vein, I did see a question earlier around how are you handling some of this workload? You said you have 195, folks on your team, but what determines when you bring in a partner, when you bring in a company like Expedient, even to help with these sorts of things and, those sorts of initiatives? How do you determine when to make that, when to bring in someone?
Yeah, great question. It really comes down to, the time it's going to take to get something completed, right? I mean, you can take 100 years, or you can take, 100 days. It really depends on what you want to do and what your goals are. And I think even with the sort of Tableau migration, the partnership we've done with Expedient, I'm big on speed, things done, right? So there's a great quote from Mark Benioff of Salesforce that speed is the new currency of business. I truly believe you have to get out there. You have to be first to innovate, first to market, first to deliver, especially during the pandemic, right? Things are going to happen completely out of our control. You have to be able to pivot and get things done. So I think for us, the things we've done with Expedient, certainly the things we've done with some of our other partners, is we know we can do this on our own with 195 people, but how long is that going to take? And is it going to be worth more to the business to get it done now or get it done later? And we have to make that judgment call. But I think we've got some great partners that have been partners that understand our vision and our mission as a college. That's really important to us, the local presence of folks working with us to get things done. So.
Couple questions here around your comments around IT being more than just a utility, right? How do you communicate that need and how do you get people on board with seeing that same vision?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's not something that I was able to accomplish like in the first week by any means, right? It's helping folks see that they've got great ideas that they want to bring to the organization in their line of business, but they're going to get it done quicker, better, faster, and stronger if they partner with IT to deliver that, right? And so it's also too, and I made this quite clear from the beginning as being CIO, that IT works for the business, not the other way around, right? With everyone in IT, we all like to think we're the smartest people in the room. And while that may be true, you don't lead with that, right? So, the business has great ideas that they want accomplished, and you got to support their vision and their mission and their strategy. And you do that with technology, and it only helps them. It forges a strong partnership, makes those relationships better. And again, it's an enabler on both sides, right? The business knows IT's here to enable them strategically, help them meet their goals.
We had a couple questions here around rural areas and limited bandwidth, right? As we've moved to COVID and virtual learning, remote learning with Zoom and Teams, how are you assisting these these students who are in remote areas, who are in, may not have the fastest speeds to get in? How is Ivy Tech helping them? Yeah,
huge challenge. Happened immediately on the weekend when we decided to shut down. That came to the forefront right away. So we partnered with some telecom providers to get hotspots. So we literally passed out hotspots to students who didn't have access. We took all of our wireless APs in our buildings, pointed them to the parking lot. So we had students coming into the parking lots working, consistently. So our buildings were closed, but our parking lots were open. So that was one of those things. It was not ideal to work from your laptop, from your car, but hey, but the thing was the coffee shops were closed, restaurants were closed. People didn't have internet access. So we distributed hotspots as best we could. We had a lot of loaner laptops out there because we had students who didn't have laptops. We had students, community college students, they've got a lot going on. They're working 2 jobs, have a family. They were coming to our computer labs every day to do their homework. Well, when the building shut down, those labs are no longer available. So again, it was my team literally ramped up 300 loaner laptops in like 48 hours, got those distributed out. We actually drove those to people's houses and dropped them off to students who needed it, drove them to campuses statewide. So it was just a blitz there when it first happened, but we had to get the equipment into the hands of the people to do their classwork. So it was critical.
So you mentioned earlier around being that going from private sector to public sector was like going from the earth to the moon. If you could go back from the moon to Earth, what sort of specific lessons have you learned from the education sector that are applicable back to the private sector?
I think, and again, I say that it was somewhat flippant to the Earth to the moon, but I think that the great thing in the public sector is we have, thousands of employees who truly believe in the mission, truly believe in their communities, truly believe in the state of Indiana and making things better for everyone. I'm not sure the private sector always gets that. I think there's a lot of ties to quarterly earnings and things like that, which is certainly important. Having been there before, I get it. But your customers are critical. And then there's again, not to steal from Mark Benioff here, but the whole stakeholder capitalism, right? Being invested in your communities and all of your stakeholders and making things better, absolutely critical. And I think private sector could do a much better job of that, because I think that, we may not move as fast as the private sector in higher ed, but our mission and our heart, what we believe in for our communities, is top notch.
You mentioned that you guys are a big Azure customer, and obviously with 1.3 million AD objects, this is all kind of tied back to Office 365 and Teams, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
You also mentioned a little bit of AWS. How are you handling multi-cloud governance and billing and reporting? Trying to manage that. I mean, you guys have 195 people, but millions of objects, so there's still a ratio there that you guys have to hit.
Yeah, really just kind of looking. Well, the management is like anything. It's day to day. Great partnerships, I would say. We have, if anything, we've done as an organization, IT team, we have phenomenal partners that invested in us and we invest in them. So that sort of relationship is really critical and important, and we certainly have had that even with big tech, not just local firms as well. So big tech's been great for us as well. And they understand our needs and our values. Just managing it, really for us, the key is really just taking that moment as fast as we want to move, taking that moment to look at the roadmap strategically and say, where do we want to put our eggs? What's our focus, right? And where are we going, where are we planning to go moving forward to make sure we make the right move? And so I think we have a really good leadership team in IT to kind of vet that, right? We kind of really beat each other up in that regard of what's the best move for the college, what's the best move for our stakeholders. So we're working towards that. And again, it's a process, certainly.
Now, do you guys have like on-prem technologies as well in your own data centers? Or you mentioned AWS and Azure and that we're helping you with DR as a service, but
yeah.
Are you guys fully on-prem as well? Or are you guys still mostly, software as a service, cloud things? And how are you kind of backing up and protecting all that?
Yeah, so we've got a nice split. It is hybrid, so we have our own data center presence downtown Indianapolis. So we have data center presence there, and so we're just kind of strategically looking to see what we can move. It's big for us to consolidate. We have so much stuff to try to manage, right? So again, those 1,000 applications I mentioned, is there a better way to do that going forward? So looking to kind of balance that out. And again, it really depends on the need of a particular application or function of the college, right? So there's need for on-prem services and certainly server hardware and racking and stacking, but there's also what can we offload to the cloud where it makes sense.
Got it. And I'm going to go with one more question here because we're coming up on time and I want to be respectful of your time and everyone else's. As part of this digital transformation, what was the hardest part? Was it culture? Was it process? Was it technology? How do you kind of help accelerate that? And how do you, work through some of those barriers?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think the hardest part is helping other folks understand, and including ourselves in IT, helping them understand that IT can bring business value. IT can be a strategic partner, and IT is willing to listen, right? And not everyone understands that. I think that, there's, and I talk to a lot of folks, nationwide and worldwide, there's still sometimes a division where there's not this relationship, is synergy between IT and the business, right? And I think that has to improve, and you have to prove that. I mean, IT has to prove that. That's not the business's fault, IT Tech, that's IT's fault, right? I own that, we own that as a team. Again, we work for the business, and I think you have to put your best foot forward. You have to kind of fall on your sword a little bit, admit the mistakes, and and not blame users or not blame business units, but say, what do we own and where did we fall down, and lead with that and say, what, we're here to help, we work for you. So that's not always easy to do, because again, we like to think we're the smartest people in the room, but chances are we might not be. So I think it's being humble and being a good partner and being a strategist with the business, I think can really go a long way.
Well, thank you for your time, Matt and Doug. Real quick announcement, Glenn Burke is the winner of the Bose SoundLink speaker. So congratulations to Glenn. Karen will be reaching out to you. You can watch this video again on our website at go.expedient.com/webinar replays, on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/expedient. Matt, where can the folks reach you if they have any additional questions?
Certainly, you're welcome to send me an email at matthew.etchison@ivtech.edu, or connect with me on LinkedIn as well under Matthew Etchison, and happy to connect and talk to anyone going forward.
And Matt, we do again thank you for your time. We hope the rest of you have a great day, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
Well, thank you.